Welcome to another episode of Third Down Pulled. We've got a special guest this week, should I say. You're joined by Euan. You might know him as EAB Skills. Thank you for jumping on, Euan. Appreciate your time. We obviously we'll start from the beginning, shall we? Really, and so because we've got so much to talk about. We know that you got into the trading card scene, which we kind of do here at the shop at Third Down, but you started off at a really young age. Making content. People don't know who you are, but a lot of people should. Obviously, as a freestyler, like we've seen videos early on, like in your back garden, just starting out and things like that. 10 years plus. I think you've been doing stuff like that, and obviously moving on to different things. So, when you look back at how you started, or what's the feeling like of like how it was then to like now?
Yeah, so a lot has changed massively. I think from a landscape of social media as one, that's changed massively. I started in 2013, and I think I've said to Ben and the guys before, when I started, I was 14, and there was no plan with it. It was just social media wasn't a thing that you could turn into a business, or it was actually kind of weird, I think, to be on social media, to be like posting on Facebook like videos or vines and stuff like that. It was a bit like, yeah, I wasn't, I guess, one of the popular kids at school. I was just kind of one of those kids who was like making videos, and everyone was a bit like, this is a bit weird. But it all changed when I got my first pair of football boots sent from Adidas. And then as soon as I got that first pair of boots from Adidas, everyone at school was like loved it then, and they were like, "Oh, can you get me some boots? Can you get me some boots?" That was really fun. But yeah, to be honest, mate, I just started posting videos on Facebook, I think it was, just to impress my friends, to show off at school and to try and get a bit of, I guess, street cred as they call it. And also, I wasn't huge on exams, and I think with the way that my mind works, I have never been very good at learning something from a textbook or learning something from a teacher and then having to do a test on it. I learn in such a creative, I think, way of very much like hands-on, and I try and I test, and if something works, and then it's great. If it doesn't, then you move on. So I was always in that kind of mindset. So I wasn't very good with exams and stuff like that. I did fine, like I got good results, but that was only because I had to really work, I think, and knuckle down. So I used a lot of the training freestyle skills and learning that side of things as like a release from like revision sessions. So I'd go in my garden and I'd just kind of have an hour or so kicking the ball about, trying to do different skills, and then I simultaneously record that and post it, and it just gained traction from there. But I think, to answer your question, the landscape was so different that I was never looking to turn it into a career. It was just something fun.
You said mentioned obviously it was fun. Like trying to impress your friends at the start. You got your first Adidas boots, like you say. That probably changed the mentality of like what you was doing. Was there a point? Was that the small point, or was there a point further on where it's like I could actually really push this further? Obviously, not knowing what the landscape's going to be like, but you knew there was something happening where it could be like this could be something good coming from this.
Yeah, I think I've got to be honest. You kind of saw people like the Sidemen and Syndicate and people like this, and more in the gaming scene, I think, who were starting to like generate real revenue from videos. And I don't know if you guys remember, like back in the day, especially like a lot of the FIFA guys, they were doing coin sponsors, and it was all very much kind of a lot of money, I guess, was being pumped into social. And I think that was probably the first time where I thought, maybe if I had a crack at this and gave it a good go, I might be able to turn it more into a career. I mean, I don't. It was honestly, for me, it's always felt like a natural progression into the next thing, and not really thinking too much about where it's going to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Nowadays, I think more like that, because it is a business, and you have to run a business like that. But especially when I first started, it was never like that. But there was definitely people I was seeing, like the Sidemen and these guys who had started to build things, and I was like, maybe there's space in the football scene for that. And then you had people like F2 freestylers come around, and I was good friends with those guys, and they started to pull off and get an Adidas sponsorship and perform at the Ballon d'Or and things like this. And you start to go, maybe there is something here. But yeah, long story short, there was never a plan. It was just kick ups and see what happened, really.
It's funny you say obviously you're bringing like mentioning the sidemen and stuff like that. And like people when they start making content focusing on themselves, but they sometimes feel like it's a competition looking at other people. But like obviously you like you mentioned you focus on yourself, but is it like kind of important to like focus on yourself, but also see what other people are doing? Maybe like can give you fresh ideas, but not be in the competition at the same time. You just got to focus on what you're doing, your career path, or just path and just enjoyment. It doesn't have to you've taken it into a career, but some people just love making content. because it's fun. But yeah, that's what's the question is, can it affect your mental health, should I say, like if you like be in a competition to like be better than what other people are doing?
Massively. I think it definitely can. But I think you also have to, if someone succeeds in your peer group, you have to give them a pat on the back and go, this is brilliant versus anything else. Because if they succeed, then it means there's more market share potentially for you because they'll be bringing in more eyes, more brand partners, more people to the scene. And I think it's the same with the card shops. I've tried to say this to a couple of the guys in the card scene. You know, everyone seems to be competing, and it doesn't need to be like that. Everyone just kind of needs to any small wins for each shop in the UK with where the scene is at the moment, that is only a positive, a net positive for the UK card scene. And I think it's the same with social. But with me, I think because I started when I was 14, 15, like that's so young when I think about it. I didn't really have that kind of I guess, trait in me to go, oh, this guy's working with this brand, so now I'm jealous because then I won't get to do it. We were all just genuinely really excited and happy for each other because it was like unknown territory. Like nobody really knew what was going to come next. I think nowadays you can look at social and go, right, there's a business plan. If you get this amount of followers, you can get a manager, you can get then this, and then it's like that wasn't a thing. So I think we were all just kind of happy for each other. And I've still got a lot of that close friend group now, today, which kind of says a lot as well.
You mentioned like pivoting, and like we mentioned it earlier. You had a number of years freestyling, obviously had so much fun with it, opened so many doors. Obviously went to the next stage where you started realizing that this could be a business in every area, not just like freestyling. There's only so much you can do. You've got to start thinking about where can I go next to keep this going. With it being a business, you've got things coming in.
Yeah, yeah.
How does your mind work in that area? Like after, because obviously you've done freestyling for so many years. Obviously, it's like your bread and butter. You don't want to kind of lose that, but obviously you've got to move on. What kind of calculated like in your mind? So think what's next, and what were the areas that you thought this could like move into that progression?
Yeah, I think there's a great phrase from I know it's kind of cringe nowadays to like think about like you people like your Gary V's and stuff, this ultimate hustle mentality, right? But I was always a big fan of like Gary V and like understanding his mindset and reading his books and stuff like that. For a lot of people who know him, the number one thing he's always said is I day trade attention. And I think that is such an important phrase because the reason why someone like him who's got longevity, and I look at myself and I've been doing this 12 years and I'm kind of nowhere where I want to be, but I feel like I'm right at the peak of my game at the moment. And that's after 12 years. And I think that is because I've always looked at where the attention is and how can I pivot slightly towards that. And that's not like a 360 pivot. That is just a slight left or right. And you also have to remember that your audience grows in the same way that you do. Like I'm 27 now. People who followed me when they were 14, 15 and were following me at the same time and now also 27. So what am I interested in nowadays? Hot in culture nowadays. And I think that is always very important to be on trend with. If you're not part of the culture, regardless whether you're just doing football skills or whatever it is, you are going to get left behind because there's always a way that you can incorporate what is popular right now into your content. And if you make good enough content, you'll gain new followers from that anyway. And those new followers will then become a part of your base. And then now suddenly you've got different strings to your bow because you can do card content, you can do football skills content. I know I could do tutorials content. I know I could do more like presenting content as people have seen recently with like Spurs and stuff like that. So it's all about just trying to stay hot on the pulse with things, and I feel like I've always been very good at that.
Obviously, you mentioned like moving with your audience, but like obviously when you do get older, you've got so many different, like you mentioned there, you've got so many different age groups of audience. Like how hard is that to like in your mind? Obviously, it comes down to mental again. A lot of it is mental. Like do you feel to keep everyone happy with the content that keeps coming through? Is that like always on your mind as well, or is it just like a where you're positive, where it's like you feel like I'm this is what I'm doing is good.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I kind of look at my schedule for the week. I kind of work on like a weekly schedule with content. I don't really go too deep into like a monthly schedule on this. I know if there's key dates coming up, I'll put something in the calendar, but I kind of work on a right. This is Monday, this is Sunday, this is what the week looks like. And with all the different platforms, you'll probably notice I don't always post the same stuff across all the different platforms like a lot of people do. I try and make specific content for each platform because I know my audience demo across each one is so different. So for me, like Snapchat is quite a big one, and I know that audience is like 8 to maybe 12 max. So that the tone of voice on that platform has to be so different to even say my Instagram. My Instagram is more kind of my age of people that follow me. So I have to make my content again a bit more specific to that. And then my TikTok is more of like an open-ended, I would say kind of that like pre-teen audience who actually really enjoy stories. So I've actually got different platforms for each one, and I do think about that kind of meticulously nowadays. But it's probably only in the last year or so where I've kind of switched from just posting a blanket piece of content across everywhere and now tailoring it across different platforms. Even the use of sound effects and music tracks across different platforms is so important because one sound, let's say it's like I use Kasabian on an Instagram reel. Like kids, it sounds mental, but kids on TikTok or kids on Snapchat wouldn't associate with Kasabian as much as they would with like a funk song or something like that, right? That is more in the culture and in that domain. So even little things like that, you have to be so switched on with. So it's kind of just trying to grow with your audience and then work out where those demos are and where they sit.
That's really interesting. Like, because like if someone said to me now, or you go away, go make some content on every single platform, I would not take any of that into account when I would just be going like, this is my video, I'm going to post on every single thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
really
yeah.
to say like, you've got even the music side to it. Like obviously it makes total sense. Obviously I'm in my 30s. I know what Kasabian are, but if you put the latest rapper to me, I wouldn't have I wouldn't have a
Exactly.
clue anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so, yeah, really interesting for anyone that wanted to create content, just little things like that. I'm guessing that takes a lot of time though to think about stuff, or a lot of experience as well, or is it just think? Is there a way that like a new person would be able to like think about, or is it just like listening to experienced people like yourself, I suppose?
I honestly just think it's understanding the culture and understanding, again, going back to that whole day trade and attention thing. Like, it's not kind of rocket science when you break it down. If more adults are on a certain app, they're going to like a certain style of video versus if more kids are on a certain app, they're going to like a certain style of video. And don't get me wrong, you can post the same video across platforms, but it's also when you go into like understanding what each platform wants from a Facebook, from an Instagram, from a TikTok point of view, they all want different things. So, for example, TikTok nowadays pushes longer content. So they want like 1 to 5 minute content pieces versus Instagram that has a 3 minute cap on a reel. So you know that you need to basically be creating shorter content on Instagram and then you need to be creating longer narrative pieces on TikTok, and then a YouTube long form, you need like 30 minutes. So if you're just posting the same thing across each one would start to perform and the rest would sit here. So unless you're being able to make each piece of content specific for the platform, you're not going to see success on each one. But it's also a time thing. Like I don't have enough times a lot of the time to be able to create one piece of content and then make it across four. So sometimes I just have to post it and see what happens. I would love to be able to have more time to do that, but it is what it is. It's life, isn't it?
Like I say, obviously time. We all had like it'd be easier if we just couldn't sleep on it, like that would make time like 24 hours a day perfect.
Absolutely.
But like obviously mentioning time is like you keep understanding why you're so busy. Like, you're working with a lot of great people. Obviously, you've opened doors from all your hard work previously, from when you were younger to like you are now. You make like obviously I watched quite a lot. Like less, a bit jealous when you got to work for Les Russo. I must admit, absolutely love Les. I'm an Arsenal fan, so obviously, absolutely love Russo. But like, yeah, you've made work with some great people. That's just when we mentioned in the card shop with like Ben and stuff. It's just doesn't feel like a job, and I bet at times it doesn't feel like a job when you're doing stuff.
It definitely doesn't feel like a job when you're on set. It feels it. You know what? It's a weird one actually. Without sounding like I don't fully appreciate the scenarios that I'm in sometimes. I think because you get a finite window with the player, for example, and all the content relies on me, especially with the Panini partnership. Everything that Panini really is. I mean, outside of their like standard posts, all the reels that we make, that's all directed by me. It's all produced by me. All the ideas are created by me. All the edits are done by me. So I know that I have that 10-minute window that if I don't hit the certain things that we need to get, then we've lost that. So it's actually really stressful. The actual working with the player, I don't even think about on the day because I'm actually thinking about how stressful the actual content and getting everything right is. So it's only really afterwards that I'm on the train or I'm in the car and I go, oh, that was actually sick. Like he was a lovely person, or Declan Rice, that was great. And you kind of look back at the content and go, oh, this is brilliant. But that kind of in the moment stuff, I've kind of tuned it out a little bit now because all I'm thinking about is getting the right shots. And whether that's a good or a bad thing, that is just how it goes. And when you get a certain amount of time, you have to kind of be in that mode. But I'm so grateful to be able to work with the players because, you know, we, 9 times out of 10, they're always great and it goes really well and you get great content. So
Yeah, we obviously got to mention the body double for Kevin De Bruyne as well, stuff like that. Obviously, the points that you raised there. It's like interesting. We're going to concentrate, move on to like the mental side of it. And obviously, with experience, you've probably got when you start working with like athletes or like footballers. It's you become more confident. But is there still a side to you now and stuff where it's like mentally, you're going into stuff and it can be like you mentioned it was stressful stuff. Are you more confident now, or is there still times now where it's like I need, like obviously mentioned, I've got to get this right, so it's like
yeah.
for me, being under pressure is probably the worst thing for me personally. So I'm just thinking like, obviously, is that like still a factor?
Honestly think I thrive in that situation. I thrive under the pressure and I almost struggle a little bit when I'm kind of sat back in the office and then going over the edit because when you've got more time, you have more time to think. And when I've got more time to think, I feel like that is maybe when I'm not at my best. When I've got a 10-minute window and I need to do everything I possibly can to get the best content, I feel like that's when I thrive. So I don't think I never really lack confidence or get nervous about meeting the player. Genuinely, all the nerves come from the thinking about the video, like I just said, and getting the right angles and the right shots. And like the biggest stress for me is like, are the mics going to work? Because the amount of times that I've seen people have issues with mics, and this is why like I basically triple record now. I record on phone, I record on camera, I record actually on the mic as well, because that is the key part. You can't go back to the editing suite or whatever you want to call it and try and get the audio back. If you don't have the audio, you're cooked. So yeah, it's all about thinking about that side of things that I kind of stress about. But the actual working with the player is fine.
Like, is that like something that you've like gained through experience over time, or have you always been that confident? And also, I can suppose it works as a double question with. I think everyone mentions when they're doing social media, obviously people can comment on your videos and things like that. Is that something that you've always been able to like shut out, or is it something you've had to work on over time through like your career so far?
Oh mate, I was so insecure when I was younger, like between the ages of 13 or 14 when I started, even to when I was maybe 20, I was really insecure. And I found it very hard to do vlogs and to do more kind of like stuff like this. Uh, I don't know, I just was. And I never really got comments about things. It was just more about those kind of self-doubts and those kind of self-thinking, or, maybe I don't like this about myself or this. But I think when you start to see success, I know it sounds ridiculous, but those type of things start to go away because you kind of realize that nobody actually cares and they kind of care about how good the quality of content is, or, you know, blah blah blah. So I think, yeah, there's definitely insecurities, but I think from a comments point of view, I've always been quite lucky. I've never had like terrible comments, and I think that's more because I've always been quite placid with my content. It's always been at like of a level of whether it's just freestyle skills. You always get people who go, yeah, but can you do it in a match? And like, but that stuff doesn't bother me because I know I can. Like, I don't care, and I have nothing to prove. You know what I mean? Like, watch my content. But when you get to be fair, I got one the other day. I did a piece at Charlton and I was on the mic at half time and the mic was like really muffly. And I saw a comment on Facebook and it was something like, oh yeah, this guy's voice annoyed me the whole half time. And it's like those little things sometimes I pick up and I'm like, is that you seriously watched that piece of content where we've given this kid the best experience and the only thing you can comment is, oh yeah, that guy's voice annoyed me at half time. I kind of laugh about it, but there's always an element, but I don't care, honestly. It's all fun and games, man.
Yeah, like I don't like I've never like I'm been on social media and stuff, and I've like commented and things like that, about things and stuff. And I've like had podcasts and things before, and I always feel like the older I've got, the easier it's become to knock them comments away. I don't know
Yeah.
if you feel the same and stuff. Like when you're younger, you've like you've not experienced stuff before. So like when someone says a comment, it can knock you and stuff. But like now I'm
For
older, I'm
sure.
like similar to you. I'm like, don't really bother me too much. But
Yeah.
it's just no need to as well, isn't it? It's just so. What's the point, man?
Well, it's pointless, isn't it? If you've spent like 5 minutes out of your day commenting a hate comment on someone's video, I think you have a slight issue there that I would like to. I almost have empathy. I'm like, mate, are you okay? Like, you kind of need to, I guess, sort yourself out. It's just crazy, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Obviously, you mentioned Panini earlier. Obviously, Panini ambassador, and that's pretty cool. You know, we've all grown up with Panini even when we were younger. You know, so I bet it's like pretty awesome to be a part of.
Mate, it's amazing. I remember my first Panini sticker collection was 2006 World Cup, and I remember collecting those blue packets, those blue World Cup sticker packets from the newsagents. And to think about what we're doing now, it really is incredible. Again, it's one of those things where I think maybe in the future I'll sit back and look and go, that was really, really cool, because it's so in the moment at the moment, and there's so much going on. It is hard to have a bird's eye view and go, this is incredible. But I am incredibly grateful for the work we're doing and the access that we get. And more so than so, I've worked with a lot of brands over my career, and I still work with a lot of brands. And the amount of brands that will come to you and say, we need a video, or we need this, and we need it to look exactly like this. That's fine, I can do that. But if you want the best piece of content, let me create a piece of content that I know is going to perform well, and then fit your brand into that piece of content versus brand here, content second. But with Panini, like, we've always worked in a way where they just give me total control on any concept. So with all the EFL work we're doing at the moment, each concept is from me. So I went to Charlton for the first one and said, look, I want to print off a giant Panini sticker. Let's stick it in the middle of the pitch. Let's get halftime access. Let's do this. And that video is absolutely blowing up because I know what the video needs to do well. And if we're in a position where we've essentially got unlimited resource to do that with access and with product and with football club, that's like, for a creator, that's like, this is incredible. Let's do this right now. So the freedom's great, and it's just given me a lot of great opportunities. So I'm really grateful for Panini.
Yeah, you mentioned like the World Cup stickers because back then it was just World Cup stickers for Panini. That's all. Like it might have been bigger
Yeah,
because I was small, but like that's all I remember Panini. And like the roads that they've gone to now with like cards and things like that is like incredible. Like obviously
crazy.
you're a big part of that. You know, like you put your ideas forward. Are you part of the feedback? You know, like loop. You know, when it comes to like products going forward and things like that. Obviously, big part of the AFL, which we'll discuss in a second.
Yeah, absolutely. So we try and feed back as much as we possibly can. I think the reason why Panini really enjoy working with myself is because I feel like I've got quite a good ear to the ground with like kids and with what younger football fans want. Obviously, the all the work I've done at Wolves, creating those pieces of content where fans come up to me and we create pieces of content before the game, and doing that across the UK as well, I do get a lot of comments and a good understanding as to what people want. And I think with the EFL stuff, the reason why this is doing so well is because of just the fact that these teams have never really been represented before. So to have a Carlisle sticker, that was always going to do incredibly well because Carlisle might be a smaller piece of the pie with regards to football, but to the Carlisle fans, that piece of the pie is everything. So when there's a product specifically for them, then they're going to lap it up. So then you've got this hardcore audience, and you've got 72 other hardcore audiences who are all vying to buy the product to collect their team. It was always going to do well. So I'm so glad they managed to get that deal over the line. But to kind of answer your question, we definitely do look to influence stuff. It's like from a UK side of things for sure, because the team is very small, and they do appreciate any kind of comments and feedback that we can give. But if someone says there's an issue, I can't really do much about it. That's kind of out of my control. But yeah, it's all fun.
Because Premier League's massive, of course it is. You know, like everyone comes to Premier League, but you don't realise how big the fan bases are down the AFL Championship League One. Obviously, away from Bradford and stuff. Bradford's sitting there like getting like average like on games like 9-10,000. And then when there's like a big Yorkshire derby, they're going to 14-15,000 fans. You know, and that's at League One. So like to bring out a product like that, it's probably going to do well. And what I like about it as well, obviously stickers are always going to be fascinating to kids or even people like at our age. You know, we've collected them when we were younger, but I like the extra additions you've got to the stickers as well. You know, like the made in the EFL and stuff like that. You know,
Yeah.
people are going to love that sort of stuff as well. And obviously, you was the Panini EFL launch on, I think it was in November, wasn't it, and stuff. We brought the third down crew with us as well. How did that go? Like, obviously, there were Billy Sharp, and I think Billy Sharp brought a few of his teammates because they were looking forward to have this, like, look at the stickers before anyone else. How was that as the launch on that day?
Stressful, but it was good. I don't think I managed to speak to Ben and Chris at all until we had a beer a little bit later on, because it was just, I was just pulled from pillar to post, because the thing with those events is that you have players scheduled to arrive, certain players don't turn up, or certain players turn up early, or certain players have to leave early, and there's a schedule of timings where you've got 10 minutes with this player, you've got 10 minutes with this player, and we know all that before going into the event. So in my head, I know exactly what I'm going to do with each player at certain time. And then when you get there, it is just a free for all. You've got your Skies, you've got your ITV Newses, you've got your BBC Newses, and it's becomes difficult to stick to a schedule, is all I'm going to say sometimes. Yeah, there's a lot of running around, but the actual event went great, and I think everyone had a fantastic time. It was just great to kind of have everyone in the same room, and to try and get as many of the hobby people and my friends involved as possible. So like you guys and people like Joe and Jordan and Bobby and people like this, and it was just great to kind of get everyone together. And I think for everyone just to be ripping packs, like, it was the first time everyone had really seen the collection, I think, in person. So it was great fun. It was a lot of stress, but it was great fun, and we had some good drinks afterwards. So that was good.
Like you mentioned, it's gone down so well. Like, I think I went. I don't know if it was the day after or the Friday. I went down to Asda just to go grab like a starter pack and stuff and everything, and they were just all gone like crazy out. So, and there's people selling them for like ridiculous amounts and stuff, and like for stickers for EFL, which is like, obviously I'm guessing there were a small party that thought it'd do well, but did you think it would go as well as it has done, where they've all just flown off the
Yeah.
shelf in like within
No,
48 hours?
I did. I did, and I've got the receipts. I've been telling Panini since March, February that this is going to do incredibly well, and I'm so glad that they did go through with this collection. And all I'm going to say is there's a lot to come, and there's a lot of exciting stuff that people are going to really enjoy. But I just wish more people could get their hands on it at the moment. I know that they're working incredibly hard to get more stock out, especially before Christmas. But also, just to touch on that, the PDC stickers has been incredibly well received as well. So you've kind of had EFL and PDC release at the same time, and you can't get either of them. I mean, I went into Tesco the other day, and there was one little packet of one of the cardboard boxes of EFL stickers left, no PDC. And I think as well, because those two sports are so working class, right? So those two sports, football, EFL, let's say EFL is incredibly working class. PDC World Champs, everyone loves it. It's a working class sport. So when you've got the two releases at the same time, and it's at a good price point, everyone is just going to lap it up, and it's kind of been the perfect storm. So I'm really proud of the Panini guys. They've done incredibly well with it.
Obviously, we like stickers can be still valuable. Obviously, we'll discuss trading cards and stuff in a bit. Obviously, they can bring in massive money. What do you think it is about the stickers? Obviously, it's getting the right product. Like you mentioned, the EFL. Not many people have tapped into that over the years. With darts as well. Is it just the fact of like turning into like obviously you've got the kids who are still like collecting, but like as like an older person, is it still the fact of like a sticker, peeling it, sticking it in, filling your collection, or is it these stickers can be valuable and stuff as well compared, like they're not as valuable as trading cards, but there's still stickers that fetch a lot, or is it just the nostalgia of sticking in the sticker?
Yeah.
Off?
Yeah, I think from an older generation point of view, because the sticker collection is a tangible thing where you have a book and you have the stickers and it's all there, versus cards that you have to store and collect, and they get bulky quite quick. I think the reason why the older people especially love that is because it takes up the least amount of space, and it is also the most cost effective option, and also tying in the fact that these guys are getting represented for the first time. This is why it's a perfect storm for all that. I do think there's a massive space for cards, and again, you'll probably see over the next few months that there'll be more coming out with cards from Panini point of view. But it's going to be an incredibly exciting few months, and I just think that the sticker collection is the perfect thing. It's all in one, so that's why it does so well. But yeah, like you said, some of those stickers are flying on eBay. I saw a Harry Kane one at Leyton Orient. The raising the EFL was selling for like 45 quid raw the other day. And I'm like, mate, I've got like 15 of those. It's like, bang on eBay myself. Yeah.
I mean, it just shows you if the trading cards does come, how well that would be received as well for the EFL.
It would be very good if they did that. Yeah.
before we move on to the next thing, I mean, I've got to ask. It were a big subject in the shop when you went to the EFL, the event. Ben wasn't sure what smart casual was. Did he end up nailing it? That's the question that we all want to know.
Absolutely, yeah. It was so funny because I think because as soon as he saw that like I was wearing trainers as well, and then like I think a couple of other lads were wearing trainers, then he was like, oh, maybe it was a lot of stress for nothing. But he looked great. They both looked great, so it was a good
Even
event.
Chris as well. Even Chris gets a compliment. Very nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was like a 20-25 minute conversation about what was smart casual. Everyone had a different opinion on it,
I
but
love
like
it. I love the commitment. I love the commitment.
we're glad he nailed it and represented the shop well. That's what we're happy about.
Absolutely.
So moving on, like obviously we kind of touched on this a little bit at the start, with like your freestyle and then transitioning into things, and obviously your strategy when it came things like you see a lot of people doing the same things and like they get stuck doing the same things because it's maybe done well for a month or maybe a few videos and thinking I can keep doing that. Obviously, what's your thought process, when it's like comes to trading cards, because that's what you've kind of like, even to a few things, but we've seen you like moving to the trading card. What kind of was your thought process, but moving on to that as well as like the other things you're doing as well?
I kind of fell into it. So I got back into collecting like a lot of people in COVID, and I didn't start making collectibles content, I think, until January 2022, maybe. So I kind of got into it personally, and then in 2022, I fell into it. So one of the agencies that Panini works with just sent me out. Sometimes I get stuff sent to me, and I don't really know where it's come from. An agency had my address. They sent me a load of Panini stickers, Premier League stickers at the time. Didn't really think too much of them. I was like, these are cool, but I'll just pop a couple in my pocket the next time I go to Wolves and I'll give them out. And I wasn't even creating content like at Wolves or anything then. It was just, I was still making all my football stuff. And then I did a video very off the cuff and I was like, right, I've got one of these sticker packets. I'll just go up to someone and say, look, if you can find a Wolves player in this packet, I will buy you anything from the club shop. And it was the perfect storm. It was like the most well-written piece of content, and sometimes those pieces of content when you don't even think about it, they are the best ones. So the kid was with his granddad. It was his first ever game of football. I didn't even know this. I gave him the packet. Literally, first player he packed was a Wolves player, and it was like his reaction was insane. And it triggered a lot of things in my mind then because that video ended up doing like millions of views. It got shared everywhere. And the formula came to my mind straight away. It was like, right, surprise element, which is the Panini pack, the wholesome element, which is the granddad and the grandson element of going to the first game. And then also the kind of mystery prize element, which is, oh, we'll buy anything you want from the club shop. People are going, oh, what's he going to buy? Wait until the end to see what's he going to buy. This all kind of fell into my mind quite quickly. And I was like, ooh, there's something here. That was where it all kind of got into the trading card scene for me. And then we sent that to Panini. And then like 3 or 4 months later, we then entered into an agreement and we just kind of have been going strong since then. So I think the formula just kind of came to me like from that video, and that is the best way sometimes. Sometimes you overthink things massively, but the actual things that kind of put you or push you into the next thing come very naturally. I've always thought that.
Yeah, obviously, like we've seen, well, I'm hoping a lot of other people have as well, but like I've seen quite a lot of your content on YouTube now. What you do with the trading cards, obviously going to the
Yeah.
London show, like the challenges. There's a lot. I just mentioned before. There's a lot of people stuck in like doing the same thing. Like with like posting a card, with the price and things like that. I think it's called the transitional trap and stuff. Like we mentioned it there. Moving on to different things. Is that like how to build like a community over here rather than just like they've got the like people when it comes to like selling stuff like they like have the small like group of like followers, but to like move on and like get more followers, like how like the transition, like you mentioned, like doing the different videos like that.
Yeah, I think from a business point of view, it's business second, content value first. So if you create a good piece of content and you consistently create good pieces of content that actually provide value, whether that be from like it's an entertaining piece of content or there's something I can learn or take from this, and I'm not being sold to. If you think general psychology, both me and yourself would think that's actually quite good. I might then check out their other stuff, which then leads you into their shop naturally. So you holistically gain that kind of follower or that person who's going to buy from your business through not actually selling to them. So I think that is the most crucial way for any business in the UK from a card point of view, or to be honest, in general, to look at content nowadays is that is your open to the world. So every video you make is for the For You page, regardless. So because you have such an open-ended reach, if you're making a video very specific about your card shop and it hits someone in America or it hits someone in Germany, they're not going to be coming to your shop and actually being a follower or buying from your shop, but they might come back because you're creating really entertaining videos. So that's how I would look at it. It's kind of creating that value first and then selling second.
You mentioned there, like obviously, like storytelling and stuff, and you know, and that's what you kind of do with your content, not just in training cards, prior to that and stuff as well. You know,
Yeah.
that's like a massive part of like building like a brand, building like getting out to customers, bringing in more fans. You know, how do you like approach the storytelling and stuff? You know, like is it like do you sit down before and have like a plan of how the video is going to do? Like I know you mentioned earlier that like sometimes on the cusp and stuff you are at your best, or do you have like some kind of plan to like what someone might like to watch and stuff and everything, and then go through there and like maybe even have like brainstorms of like different scenarios what to do with videos.
Yeah, absolutely. So that formula that I said to you just about that kind of those three key things are always the values that if I'm sat down and I'm like, right, I'm going to go to Millwall next week and I know we need to make this piece of content and it needs to do this. Here's the formula. It needs a punchy first 4 seconds to get people to watch the next 5 seconds, and then that next 5 seconds needs so why am I then going to watch to the end? I like to put why people are going to watch to the end within the first 10 seconds of that video, because statistically most people have swiped within the first 10 seconds anyway if it's a 60-second video. So if you can tease what's going to happen at the end at the start, that's always what I like to do. But I try and look at it like a 90-minute film, 60 seconds. So if you think about any films, you have start, you have a problem, you have how we're going to solve the problem, and you have a resolution. So I kind of look at that and I try and put that into each piece of content. My off the cuff stuff is more from like a football skill based side of things. I always have a plan of what I want to do, but a lot of the time when I actually get to the pitch, I think, oh, this would actually work better, or this would work better. But with the narrative led stuff, there is always I'm kind of thinking about the voiceover in my head when I'm filming it as well. Like, how am I going to position this clip, and how do I want the audience to feel, and how can I use a sound effect to create a different emotion, and stuff like this. I get very deep into that stuff, and probably to my detriment sometimes, because it means I can't get enough content out. But I like each video to be a journey, and genuinely like a 90-minute film in 60 seconds is how I look at it.
And obviously you got to have like your personality comes out in your videos and things like that, you know, like that helps like bring viewers in, they want to watch and things like that. How important is that to have like a personality, and also can that like transfer onto like into the trading card scene, you know, like into a trading card shop? How important is personality, you know, like to get viewers in and things like that?
I think it's paramount. I really do. I think the problem with a lot of the shops in the UK is there is a complete lack of personality. I don't know who the business is. Um, And the thing with a lot of the UK card shops, especially because everyone's basically selling the same products, right? You have a release, a Panini Prism release, everyone gets like allocation and everyone sells it. But what makes me buy from your business versus this business? And a lot of the time it would just be because they're actually fun and they've got personality. For me personally, I would always go to that type of business that I actually think, oh, these guys have got a bit about them. I take value from their content online, and versus just like you said, people just take a photo of the product and then this is it and it's faceless. I think the faceless thing, it doesn't command trust as well in the buyer. If I don't know who you are, then I can't connect with your business. This is why I say to a lot of businesses, because I do consultancy for different businesses and things like this, whether it's startups or whether it's big businesses. The thing I always say to them is like, treat your business like a personal brand. So treat your business as if it's you, and your personality will then shine through, and people will be more. And even if you have a fail, even if something goes wrong in the shop, own it, be transparent, and when you're always on camera anyway, it will look more genuine if you're sat there every day making a video anyway, and then when something goes wrong, you're still there and you're still making a video, and it's a bit more like, look, this happened, but this is what we're doing to fix it. That is so important versus that just showing your face when something goes wrong. You know what I mean? So if you've got a
Yeah.
consistent presence, it helps so much.
So like when you got a shop, your main thing is to sell, and like I
Of
think a lot
course.
of people over focus on that rather than like the stuff that you mentioned there. Like, and that will help surely build a community as well. Like instead of just focusing on the selling, would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah. Because without community, who's going to buy your stuff? Who's going to know who you are? Community is paramount, and the way that you build the community is through giving as much value as possible through your content. That's genuinely what I believe. And I think a lot of people dive headfirst into the business side of things with cards without doing the groundwork from a personality and community point of view with YouTube. I think the difference is, right, you look at the US guys, so you've got people like Card Collector 2, you've got people like King of the Cards, you've got people, in that, even like Jeff Wilson. These people created like face first brands first, and then they opened a shop. So, and they're the ones who have got the most success. I mean, obviously Carl hasn't got a shop, but the reason why he has lines of people waiting to buy from him at shows is because he's managed to create a great personality online first, and then the business comes second. So I think a lot of people look at it more from a business first. Oh, and then we'll get the personality in. Whereas you kind of have to have them working alongside each other, or having the personality here and the business comes here. I get people need to, it's economics, isn't it? You have to sell product, but that's what it is. Yeah.
Do you think that's what's missing in the UK? Obviously, there is some people that are good at that, and there's some people that've got like successful brands over in the trading card in the UK. Do you think there's a lot of that that's missing over here? Do you think it's more people are that focused on not they are the important things, but not the important things right now to get to the important things. Like we mentioned there, like the personality and stuff. Do you think that's missing in the UK? Do you think it's not transpired over from the US of people not following them footprints? Would you say?
Yeah, I do, but I also think that the reason why it hasn't followed over as much yet is because of resource. In the US, they're selling cards for £50,000. Like Ryan will do a lot of, he'll buy a lot of cards for like 20 grand, and I'm like, there's probably two people in the UK scene from a individual point of view, not a business, who could go to a card show and do that. So it's there's that factor where we need to catch up from, like, if people can afford to do that, then they can afford to hire a cameraman, is what I'm saying, and then they can document their personality more. So there's a gap there. But I also think there's really easy strategic wins that, I mean, you see everyone now has got a DJI on their table, and they're doing POV content. But this is a good start. This is a great first start. Give us some value, give us some context as to why you're doing this. And I think even I would love to. I've spoke to a lot of the guys in the scene. I'd love to know why are you selling cards? Why are you here? What's your story? What's your background? Before you just put a sign out and say I'm buying at 80%, tell me about why I should give my cards to you, and you buy off me at 80%. You know what I mean? Give me a bit of background, and do that through your content.
Yeah, that's like there's a few people that like when I first got into the hobby, there's a few people that I went to watch and stuff, and JJ Cards is like fantastic at that. I watch his videos all the time because he's giving me so much context of why things are happening and stuff and things like that. And if there were a few more people like that, I'm sure that they get a lot more views. And yeah, like I say, it'd help the hobby grow as well. Over here, that's what we want. We want more people engaging in things like that. To help new people because people probably get lost in that area. Like you need people to understand it's an in-depth area trading cards. Like there's
Absolutely.
so much going on in there, and like you can easily like fall out of love with it because you're not understanding certain things. But that's yeah, JJJ cards is a fantastic with stuff like that. Obviously, we mentioned Panini. We've seen you open a lot of Panini stuff and cards and stickers. We've seen a video, if anyone's seen it on YouTube, of your personal collection of all the amazing stuff you've got. When you open packs, is there anything that you actually keep? Obviously, we can see that you're a Wolves supporter if anyone's watching the video in the background. Do you keep a lot of the Wolves stuff, or is there other players or sports that you like to collect?
Yeah, honestly, mate, I give so much away. Like, a lot of people don't understand, and because I don't document it, I give away so much. Like, I go to charities and I give the stuff away. Seal products. I will just go and donate. And I've got a couple of different people who I know run different charities who I kind of just go, right, this is a load of stuff here, whether you want it or not, just let me know. If not, I can do else with it. Keeping actual stuff, I keep very select things. I think I keep more stuff for content than anything. I've tried to like squeeze down my PC a little bit now because I got to a point where I was like, what am I actually collecting this for? So unless it's a specific thing now, I won't really buy it. But talking about specific things, I always try and collect like out of 10, any out of 10 kind of color match gold wolf stuff, I'll always collect. Again, it has to be of certain players. If there's any Ruben Neves comes into the shop, any João Moutinho comes into the shop, any Raul Jimenez, any of those guys, yes, 100% I'm collecting. And then kind of like the American stuff, I've always been a big like American sports fan, both basketball and NFL. So I kind of collected a lot of the basketball stuff from when I was younger. So players that I enjoyed from when I was younger and stuff like that. But yeah, like my PC's definitely a bit smaller now.
You obviously mentioned like when you were younger there, you collected like the basketball stuff. Looking at the hobby now, like obviously we want to make sure the kids are a part of it. Remember, it was obviously the Panini adrenaline and stuff was like massive. Like you see like loads of new stuff in the shop as in the shops when you go out as well for kids. Do you think there's like do you think it's becoming too expensive for the average kid? Like you see these top market stuff some adults can't afford, but is there a massive gap now where it's like there's not enough for kids to get into it? That's a good value, should we say, and still getting good stuff out of that value as well.
Yeah, I think we're in a really interesting point with cards, both cards and stickers at the moment, because with the advent of shops like your Fanatic stores and things like this, it's been incredibly interesting to see the kind of pull of base sets. So I think even with your Adrenaline XL last year in the Premier League and this kind of EFL base sticker set, that feels like where a lot of the kids are kind of now going to first and then very quickly moving on to your higher end. So I think more than ever nowadays is that people are being introduced with those sets and then very quickly moving up the ladder. And I think, look, a lot of these companies want that to happen. I mean, whoever makes cards, I'm sure would prefer to sell to a kid versus, £2 a pack at, a £50 box, of course. But I do think that's been really interesting. But what I would say is that outside of those base sets, if I was a kid now, I wouldn't be able to get anywhere near those kind of even mid-level sets. And I think that is a bit of an issue, but I do know that companies are trying hard to kind of make something that is more all-encompassing for kids, which allows them to get the hits and allows them to, kind of have value in the cards. But I would say if I was a kid now, I could not afford to be in the hobby, even outside of just the base products.
Yeah, I think that's like a good. That's why I'm going back to it. Like we touched on it earlier, like I say with the Panini stickers, the EFL. That's why I love the little insert stickers you got in there. It's just obviously maybe not as big a hits as some of the cards, but still, I remember watching you open some packs and they weren't a regular thing to get bought in the like made in the EFL, should I say, and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, and like stuff like that is like cool. Like I'm just thinking back to when I was a kid and just if I packed something like that, I'd be over the moon and stuff. And that's what it's about. Like the hobby at the end of the day. Obviously, we all want to hit a massive card that, like, if we sell it, brings in some money, or like as a kid keeps hold of like a one-on-one of like you mentioned, like out of 10 or out of 5.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we want to keep them in the hobby. We don't want them like to be inaccessible to get these big cards. We don't want to forget about that as we move on to like hit people buying the bigger products and things like that.
But I think that this is why like shops like yourselves are really good because you can go into a shop like you guys and have a flick through of, let's say 50p cards or £1 cards, and you can just find cards that you actually want. A lot of the time when you're ripping base sets, like you get so much that you don't want. And for a kid to go into a shop like you and be educated almost in, you know, looking through that box and going, I really like maybe I like Prism. I like Prism, but I can't right now. I can't buy a Prism box, but I could collect all the Prism base cards of my of my club, and then puts the seed in their mind that maybe for the future, when they're a little bit older, they might go, oh, Prism, I used to love that, and now I'll start to collect it. So I think it's so important what shops like you guys do yourselves to kind of have those flick throughs and stuff like that.
Obviously, we talk about the UK scene, and you mentioned the EFL and the darts. Like obviously that's we mentioned like the working class. It also
Yeah.
just for the UK. Do you think like products like that, and is there like other things out there that's like finally finding its own identity? What do you say when it comes to cards and also stickers as well? Like I say, darts is probably not as popular in the US and stuff. So like having them products that are just, I think we're I think it was on a show the other week. We mentioned rugby league, maybe somehow getting rugby league products. Is that the way to find an identity, and is it kind of on its way to that? Would you say in the UK?
Yeah, and I'll just take the Panini example because they obviously lost Premier League. It was right, we need to try and think a little bit more outside the box. And I think also like not following the lead from the US as much, because I think in the UK we've almost kind of gone right. US is the template, we then kind of follow what they do. But like I said, with the darts stuff and with the EFL, those are two collections very European focused. Darts is massive in Germany. I mean, so Panini Germany basically deals with the darts releases, and then the UK obviously works to then distribute in here in the UK. So to kind of cover that is been incredibly interesting, and to try and almost generate your own demographics over this side of the pond versus relying on the US is really important. And I think it's the only way that brands are going to be able to grow and not have to be reliant on the US market, because the US market is going here and they just keep wanting more premium and premium and premium, where darts cards will only have a certain level inside the US. So we've got to try and create our own market here, and it's definitely growing. Even the hobby boxes for PDC and stuff, like the money's worth in those boxes is getting quite high. Definitely, I think it's definitely a positive that we're almost creating our own niche.
Before we finish up, obviously we mentioned like you start, we mentioned how you've like transitioned, and obviously coming up to 2026, it's a massive year for yourself. Obviously the World Cup 2026. You're going to be over there. You're going to be shooting content. You look at how much you're looking for. I mean, I'm a massive tournament guy anyway. I remember the first one, Euro 96. That shows my age. Euro 96, and like watching the first one, I've just watched every single tournament. There's just something about it. So I'm guessing you being a football fan, something similar. How excited are you about getting over there?
Yeah, just incredibly excited. I've been getting all the memories on my Facebook this week because I was out in Qatar for the last one for 6 weeks. So, and that was obviously this time of year. So I've been getting all those memories on Facebook every single day as what game I was watching, what stadium I was at. So yeah, very much the plan is to be there for a considerable period of time, whether that's the whole thing or whether that's a good couple of weeks. But it's going to be incredibly interesting. I think we initially thought we'd kind of head East Coast first and then maybe make our way back and try and hit as many games as possible. But we obviously watched the draw the other day, which is the most long, drawn out thing I have ever endured in my life. But I think it means that we probably, for an England point of view, will be in Toronto, and I think it was New Jersey, and I think it was Houston, maybe. I can't remember where it was. So we'll probably look at targeting those. But I'm incredibly excited. I think the American market for a long time has needed something like this from a soccer point of view, and with having Messi and everything, it feels like everything has been pushing towards this tournament. So I'm incredibly excited, and the content that I'm hoping to make out there is going to be great. And obviously, Panini have got full World Cup license, so I'm incredibly excited.
Yeah, I'm looking for, like I say, I always try and collect the World Cup stickers and stuff and everything.
Yeah.
Like I say, I've got it's always been Panini for me because obviously that's what it was back in the day when I was younger and stuff. And like I had got a few full albums, so I'll be sticking. So you'll be doing content with Panini, you doing some content for yourself, or is it all just going to be Panini focused? Or
We haven't actually, well, we've loosely spoke to Panini about it. Panini won't actually be activating out there, so I will just go myself and just go out and make stuff. But obviously, because Panini have the collection anyway, it will help things naturally be able to film some really cool stuff. But we'll see. We haven't really had that strategy call yet, so it's coming, I
yeah,
think.
we're still in 2025, aren't we? We're jumping ahead and stuff,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
yeah.
that's what we do when we see the World Cup, and like we obviously we just had the draw.
Absolutely.
We get excited. Like I say, you mentioned like building up to it. They had the Club World Cup this year and stuff, and like it was a weird one because obviously there was quite a lot of fans there, but I don't know if it took off as much over here, but maybe that was the club side of it. some more teams there this year. Like I know there's been a bit of pushback. I'm looking forward to it. More matches, the more better. And obviously the small teams that get to go there as well that you don't normally. I think that's
Yeah.
exciting. Are you just going to be following England round, or are you going to try and get to, obviously when they get to the knockout round, obviously they might go to Mexico and Canada, but are you going to try and get to
Yeah.
every single country as well, or?
I think so. I would love to go to the Azteca. I think that would just
Yeah,
be football heritage, and it would be something that you tell your grandparents, your grandkids about when you get to that age. So we're going to be try and be as strategic as possible with where we're going to try and be. I'd like to try and hit all countries and all sides of the US, but it's a big place, man. It's a big place, so we just got to see what we can do.
because you mentioned obviously you normally just plan content for a week, or like not too far in front. How does something like this work? Is it similar? Do you have to wait till like a month or two prior? Or are you kind of thinking about it like maybe when you get into 2026? Because obviously it's kind of different to like weekly stuff, isn't it? You've got to maybe have an earlier plan, would you say? Or,
I mean, I'll show you, for example. So I've been working on, here we go. I've been working on this plan and content ideas. I think this was like September that I started. So this is the map, and this is exactly what we want to do from a content ideas point of view. So, like, we know exactly what we want to do, and I know where I want to be and what content's going to do well. It's just now logistically sorting it out with Airbnbs and everything. But we were kind of waiting for the draw to happen to just give us a bit of clarity. So yeah, it's all full steam ahead now.
is the biggest card show on earth the national penciled in on there and stuff? Anything while you're over there? Is it a similar time, or is that going to be too hard to get to? What do you say?
It all depends. I mean, if I'm there from the whole tournament, which is 5 weeks, and then I'm gonna add another 2 weeks on for the national. It all depends how my girlfriend's feeling, whether she manages to get out there herself as well. So otherwise, it's gonna be a long, quite a long 6 weeks without seeing her. So we'll see. We'll see. I would absolutely love to do it though. I think it'd be great. I think I'd probably not even focus a huge amount on making content. I'd like to just do it from a personal point of view and just kind of seeing everything. And I think because it's going to be such a big 5 weeks of filming all the content at the World Cup, I might be a little bit just like, and now I just need a bit of detox for 5 days. So, but we'll see. I definitely want to get out there. So it'd be great.
I appreciate you coming on, you, and I've had a fantastic chat. We've learned so many things,
Of
just like the
course.
insight into like how you go. Obviously, like I say, EAB Skills. I think that's your username for and everything. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram,
Everything.
Snapchat, everything the same.
Yeah.
Managed to get them all. So we'll drop that in the thing so people can follow you if they already don't. But yeah, really appreciate your time, mate. I've really enjoyed it, like learning like just the insights on how you've come so far and stuff. Like yeah, it's been brilliant. Appreciate you jumping on talking trading cards with us as well.
Of course, thanks for having me, and keep up the good work in the shop and at the shows. It's always great to see. So those green hoodies get about. I know that.
Yeah, hopefully get to meet you in person soon.
Yes, mate, for sure.
Cheers, appreciate that.